Hello, welcome back to Mountain Gym Card Collectibles. Hope you're having a great week so far now that Friday's here. So today I am doing part 2 of debating eBay's health. And the reason why we're at part 2 today is because on April 30th, 2025, eBay released its first quarter financial results. And what we found out overall is that sales are more or less flat in comparison to the first quarter of 2024. The first quarter of 2024 for revenue that eBay took in was approximately $2.55 billion, and for the first quarter of 2025 eBay brought in approximately $2.6 billion. So that isn't much. They did gain some buyers on the platform, but if you were crossing your fingers thinking that, all of these tariffs from Washington D.C. were going to help you, get more sales on eBay, at this point it appears that that isn't really going to do much for you. Whether it was last year or this year, tariffs, no tariffs. If you thought that all the buyers were going to rush to your eBay store from Temu and Shine, because they're getting just hit with big tariffs on those platforms, well, it appears it's not really happening. And one of the things that stood out is the fact that they're also going to replace their chief financial officer after these first quarter results as well. So obviously eBay is trying to get better quarterly results. But in reality, I just think that they're spinning their wheels. Because if you don't want to get down into the mud and muck and really drastically change your company and your corporation to go up against, say, the big dog in town, Amazon, well, then what are you doing? And when I say that, before we get into those numbers, I just want you to think about a few things, about how eBay makes their money. Now, on April 30th, I was working on eBay, went to my, the selling part of eBay, and without even seeing the quarterly results, I knew what was going on. And the reason why I knew what was going on is because of this. Look at this. And this is really where eBay fails their sellers, their customers, and the entire internet in general. Why is that? Well, they're kind of scumbags in a way, for the fact that they don't want to go out and earn money from their sales channels in a proper manner. Meaning that, a simple way of selling stuff, for a platform, and, Whatnot comes to mind, is how Whatnot tends to make its money from sales over going in and doing these pay-to-play options for its sellers like eBay likes to do to increase its revenue. And to me, when I look at something like this that I'm showing you, it just reeks of eBay's desperation to try and milk anyone that is attached to eBay of revenue for themselves. And it's just so pathetic. I feel like I practically am at the eBay headquarters in my mind. It's just like I'm seeing stuff and it's like I know exactly what they're thinking. So yesterday when I saw this, let's see what they want you to do so that they can increase their revenue, because let's face it, their lousy site doesn't exactly get a lot of sales because, well, they're just not very good. And I know that eBay doesn't want to deal with the ramifications of, that reality, but you have to look at eBay and go, man, these guys really suck. Especially when you look at something like this. Look at the top part. Boost your listings today. Help sell your items faster and only pay ad fees when they're sold. Why do we have to do that? Why can't you do that, eBay? Huh? You'll get your cut when we get our sales. And then, they have the reduced handling time by 1 day, which I don't know what that'll do for you. But then you look at the middle one there. Reach more buyers on eBay. Start promoting listings with the general strategy to help get up to 25% more clicks. And guess what? You're going to have to pay for that too. And then reach more buyers off eBay. Get started with promoted offsite to help increase clicks up to 45%. And guess what? You got to pay for that too. Why do we have to keep paying you, eBay? Why can't you get with the program like Whatnot and just set up a simple system that goes, we make money when we get sales? And that's the organic way that Whatnot does things. And I'm not, the biggest fan of Whatnot. I'm really not. I don't go on there and sell items. I mean, I didn't go on there hardly at all for April. To be honest, I was doing more work on eBay. But the thing about Whatnot is when you get the sales, when they get the sales, they earn their money at the point that you make a sale. They get the fee. They're not sitting there hassling you constantly. Oh, you got to pay us for more, sales slots. Oh, you got to pay us, for more promotions, for ads, blah, blah, blah. To me, eBay doesn't want to do their job. And if they have to do their job, then they want to sit and, milk you to no end. And then the thing about eBay is they're so pathetic about how they want to get money. Their big plan on April 30th, 2025, to get more money, to get more revenue, is to roll out that window I showed you to get more clicks to the sellers. Why is that? Does eBay have more sellers than buyers? Ask yourself that. If all they're doing is catering to try and milk the sellers to no end over the buyers, do they have many buyers? And that's just it, is really, if they want to increase revenue and they're really, we need it bad, why are they not creating something that compares to Prime for the buyers to get, all these awesome options on eBay similar to Amazon? Hell, maybe eBay could even make a channel. Why not? Put a channel up on Roku. Put some movies up. Why not? Give members something other than going back and beating your sellers to no end for cash because you don't have any good ideas. Now, I don't know what eBay could do to create something that's similar to Prime for the buyers, but they need to come up with something. I mean, all of these years of getting hammered by Amazon Prime, eBay's still sitting there, spinning their wheels, not changing the way they do things, and all the sellers are paying for it. It's just so pathetic how eBay does things. If it was up to me, I would fire the CEO today. I would get rid of all the higher ups at eBay today. I would do a complete overhaul. But I'm just some guy, that lists, stuff for him, sports cards, whatever, sell stuff. But if I had the options, they'd all be gone. Why? Well, we bring in a crew that we are going to go to battle with Amazon. And that means they have to become a platform that doesn't just cater to milking sellers to no end. You have to work the buyers as well. All right. So now you kind of have my personal opinions on that. And now we can look at eBay stock. If I was looking at investing, which I'm not investing right now because of the stock market, being in the toilet, since, Donald Trump more or less rolled into office and, all these fears of tariffs. I'm not doing the stock market. I used to do the stock market last year. I was getting burned last year. The burning would just continue. And you can just look at this for today. Yeah, we had a little peak here, about $70.43. Now it's down to 67.67. I mean, I wouldn't day trade with eBay stocks. No way. That's what I used to do is day trade. But anyway, I am looking at right here. This is March 2024 because we're looking at a year over year. We're missing some key figures like the EBITDA. We're missing that. Now, last year, the EBITDA, which is a great measurement for a health, was up 14.89%. They don't have that number out yet. Okay. That's one of the big numbers I like to look at when I invest, is because it really does tend to show the true health of what a stock is. Now, an EBITDA, it's a standard of measurement banks use to judge a business's performance. It stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Now, we don't have that figure yet. And it's one of the most important figures, if you're a doctor and you have a patient, this is basically like a pulse, I mean, this is a very, very important number. And we do not have the number. So it's almost like you can't put your thumb on the patient's wrist to check for a pulse at this point. So we're missing that data point. The only thing that was more or less released was revenue and a few other figures that really aren't as helpful as they could be for trying to figure out, what's going on. All right. So now, I am looking at just a few headlines. And really, if you're involved in trading on the stock market, some of these are really just big red flags. They don't look like red flags to the average reader. But if you're on the stock market, you see red flags here. Basically, the biggest red flag, in my opinion, is eBay announces CFO transition and executive leadership changes. Yeah, I already said that. I would get rid of this whole team, CEO included. Here's one. And the Wall Street Journal is always trying to hype stuff up that they really do for stocks. But really, when they get into eBay logs higher quarterly profit, revenue names new CFO. I mean, yeah, they logged a higher quarterly profit the year over year. Last year, it was $2.55 billion. This year, it's $2.6 billion for the first quarter of the year. I mean, what a joke, right? So they even try to kind of hype up that little point, but it's really like it's as flat as can be. The reality is with the situation at hand, with all these tariffs coming down, is if things want to turn out the way that Washington, D.C. wants things to turn out, and President Trump is, we should have seen some big numbers here. Big numbers from buyers from Temu and Shine. We are not seeing that. Is that going to come the second quarter? And I don't believe it is. I just believe that there's just too much in the air right now with the tariffs. And all consumers, including myself, are fearful of what's going to happen within the next quarter. Because there's just so much uncertainty. Okay? I'll go ahead and click this. Well, here's another headline from E-commerce Bytes. eBay sales nearly flat in first quarter, replaces chief financial officer. Yeah, I mean, that's an accurate headline. eBay announces CFO transition, sees quarterly revenue ahead of estimates. Let's click Yahoo. The reason why you are seeing some of these right-leaning journalism places, put out these headlines is, because they support Donald Trump. They're not going to just go in and just, hack and slash away at his policies. But if you're involved in business, this is nerve-wracking, with what's going on with all these tariffs. And the reason why is if we had like a lot of manufacturing factories in the U.S., I wouldn't be near as nervous. But that's just, if you're going to go into a trade war, you really need to have a lot of factories to compete. And the U.S. doesn't really have that. And they're not really set up to bring in a lot of these factories. Anyway. So it says eBay. Okay, so first off, this is a Yahoo Finance Routers article. It says eBay announced the CFO transition sees quarterly revenue ahead of estimates. It was written by Juby Babu on Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. E-commerce firm eBay said on Wednesday that its chief financial officer, Steve Priest, will step down in May and will be replaced by Peggy Alford, who was a vice president at PayPal. And how soon will she be stepping down? eBay forecasts second quarter revenue above estimates and also beat market expectations for quarterly revenue. Yeah. But caution that it is not immune to the increased costs from tariffs and the friction associated with the U.S. President Donald Trump's trade policy. Yeah. I mean, it's a nightmare. We continue to navigate an uneven demand environment with the shopping activity more muted in February and improving in March, Priest said on a post-earnings call with analysts. And I saw that with my sales. And then after March went away, April hit and my sales just tanked on eBay. I'm not sure if you're experiencing the same, but I mean, if you look at my sales, they were kind of not doing that great in January. February, they started to kind of boom up. March, they were doing really good. And then April hit, and it was just like someone turned the off button. The company's emphasis on its focus categories and geo-specific investments is driving momentum, CEO Jamie Iannone said in the statement, which I don't really know if it is. I mean, this was a flat quarter. Despite macro uncertainty and recent trade policy changes, we view the guidance as solid and expect continued momentum in GMV and advertising, said Aaron Sundaram, senior equity analyst at CFRA Research. That's pretty sad. Relying on advertising? What advertising from who? The sellers? What a joke. Anyway, and maybe there are third parties that they are relying on their advertising. But honestly, what does that do? So eBay expects revenue in the range of $2.59 billion to $2.66 billion for the second quarter, with the midpoint coming above the analyst's average estimate of $2.60 billion, according to data complied by LSEG. It reported first quarter revenue of $2.59 billion. So even I know they've been reporting $2.6 billion. I've even been saying $2.6 billion. But really, that's pretty pathetic because $2.59 billion is only, $0.4 billion more than $2.55 billion? I mean, what a joke. So it's as flat as can be. That's why they're replacing the CFO. That's why they're shaking up the higher-ups. But they're not doing a good job. Why is it that eBay just spins their wheels and will never get the idea of how to compete with Amazon? So gross merchandise volume, a key industry metric that denotes the total value of goods and services sold in the marketplace, rose 1%. That's it. 1% with all this chicanery with these tariffs. 1% to $18.8 billion for the quarter ended March 31st. Okay, so when I read that, with everything that's going on with these tariffs, I'm aggravated. I'm not happy. We know a lot of it has to do with eBay just really seems to lack a way of changing how they do business. I mean, to me, they're still doing business the way they were doing it back in 2014, 2015, And maybe they're crossing their fingers on certain things, but overall, it's fairly pathetic. Okay? And now we're going to look at this one. This is from eBay. And eBay tries to hype it up, They do. But it's tough to hype that up, $2.55 billion for the first quarter in 2024 versus $2.59 billion for the first quarter of 2025 with all the these tariffs that are supposed to be helping us out supposedly versus China, which they're not really doing anything for us. Yes, they put 2.69 billion. Well, come on, eBay. Put 2.59 billion because that's what it's not 2.6. And they just kind of go over some of the things we just went over. But what I want to go into is the business highlights. And to me, this is the biggest joke about eBay. I just got into why can't eBay come up with something similar to Prime so that they can start to get more money from buyers over sellers. You know, why go to us every time you need more money? Oh, time to get more money. So what does eBay do? Time to go and milk the sellers some more fees, more this, pay for that. What a joke. Okay. And to me, it feels like amateur hour. It feels abusive. It feels like we live in an abusive family. And guess who always gets abused? You know it. The sellers at eBay. Okay. Business highlights. eBay rolled out a simplified AI-powered listing flow to all consumer-to-consumer consumers in the US, UK, and Germany, leveraging eBay's magical listing technology to improve the ease, speed, and quality of listing creation. What a joke. Get Prime. Get something like Prime, eBay. The company expands its authenticity guarantee service in Japan to include watches and jewelry, reinforcing eBay's value proposition of trust and selection and increasing customer confidence for luxury items on a global scale. Do they really think that's going to boom up their sales? Give me a break. As part of eBay's strategic partnership with collectors and subsidiary PSA, the companies have streamlined the grading process for raw trading cards. Integrated with eBay's authenticity guarantee, the PSA grading service makes it even more seamless for hobbyists to determine the value of their trading card purchases. Once again, eBay is always trying to work the back end over the front end. What's the front end? The buyers. No, they're always trying to work the back end. Oh, this is such a great deal for you sellers. Yeah, give me a break. I can just go get a membership at PSA. I won't have to deal with the eBay headache. I deal with cards all the time. Big deal. In celebration of Pokemon Day, eBay launched the Evolving Shop, a curated shopping experience enabling collectibles enthusiasts to discover rare trading cards and coveted merchandise inspired by the beloved Pokemon Eevee and its evolutions. Whoopee-doo. eBay closed the acquisition of Carmel, an end-to-end online automotive transaction solution provider. Carmel's innovative technology handles all the complexities of a vehicle sale, improving trust and safety across the platform. Good luck with that. I'm not selling my cars on eBay. I sell my vehicles locally. That's how I make a lot of my money. That's how I survive. I can't survive on eBay sales. Why? Because eBay is a joke to an extent. Am I going to try and sell cars on eBay? Hell no! eBay introduced enhanced customer safeguards alongside a buyer protection fee on listings from UK-based C2C sellers, increasing trust with 24/7 customer support, enabling buyers to complete transactions with confidence. Okay. I'm not sure where this increasing the 24/7 customer support. How does that work? Because maybe they're getting that in the UK. We're not getting that in the USA. You can go ahead and I'll put up the phone numbers. Another reason why a lot of people I know do not like eBay is because they want a 1-800 number that they can call 24/7 and talk to an operator about what they purchased. Just like Amazon. That is what they expect. And the chicanery at eBay it's a joke. So maybe they started to roll that out in UK, and if they did, that is a good thing. But it's still not in the USA. I can post the phone numbers, whatever, let you call them, whatever. You're not going to get anywhere. The company's total advertising offerings generated $442 million of revenue in the first quarter. So I'm not sure if they're talking about putting their advertisements out there, because I'm starting to see more commercials representing 2.4% of GMV. First-party advertising products on the eBay platform delivered $418 million of revenue in the first quarter, up 13% on as-is-reported basis and 14% on an FX-neutral basis. I need to get into more details of what they are trying to talk about. I mean, are they talking about what they are believe that they're generating from their advertisements? Are they talking about back end, from sellers, promoted ads, whatever? What are they talking about? And right there, it's just so generalized that that's what eBay wants. They rather put a generalized statement out there, throw in 2.6 billion rather than 2.59 billion. Do you get what they're trying to do? Anyway, eBay announced a collaboration with OpenAI on its AI agent operator, which acts as a virtual assistant, autonomously performing tasks including online shopping, connecting users to eBay's unique inventory, and expanding seller reach. Which I just wish they'd completely get rid of the AI. I believe that this platform would do much, much, much better without all the nightmares that AI is creating. eBay partnered with Meta to integrate eBay listings on Facebook Marketplace in the US, Germany, and France, providing sellers broader visibility and a chance to reach a new audience of buyers. But they don't really give sellers any control there. So I just, once again, a lot of the stuff that eBay likes to roll out is to try and milk more money out of the back end. Why is that? Is that because the numbers aren't that great for eBay's sellers versus buyers? I'm guessing they likely have more sellers on their platform than buyers. And what gets me is the fact that rather than working the front end and trying to roll out something like Prime, a lot of the times all we get is this back end stuff to try and milk sellers even more. It's scummy. It really is, and it's just like, why can't they be an organic site that's decided to earn their money from fees from sales? 100%. All right, so we went over that article really well. Went over eBay's theories. We went over the headlines. I really, at this point in time, there isn't much more that we can go over. With the revenue flow, whatever, it's still fairly flat. So, what does this tell us about eBay's health? Well, it tells us that maybe they are trying to change some things by, getting rid of their CFO and trying to shake up the higher ups. We went over some information that, hey, maybe they have decided to roll out 24/7 customer service in the UK. I'm not sure how that works. In my opinion, it needs to be just like Amazon's 24/7 customer service, where you can call them 24/7 and talk to somebody, which you just can't do that in the US on eBay. And I know it pisses off a lot of buyers. Went over the flat rates, for the year over year, 2.55 billion in the first quarter of 2024 versus 2.59 billion. And they like to hype it up to 2.6 billion, but it's not. It's 2.59 billion for the first quarter of 2025, which is really just flat as can be. So what's my forecast for the year? I don't see eBay doing better really this year over last year, unless they begin to decide to roll out major significant changes. Rather than always abusing the sellers on the back end to milk them out of more money, eBay would have to become a company that's 100% on also getting more money from buyers. Coming up with something similar to Amazon Prime makes sense, by giving buyers like a month, or 2 months, or they pay for a full year of free shipping and other benefits, as well. eBay lacks ingenuity. eBay lacks creativity. And what gets me is, does eBay even look at Amazon and go, maybe we should try to compete and kind of put ourselves on the same level with buyers as, Amazon does with their buyers? I know I've gone over, other eBay things where, I talk about, like how Amazon protects its sellers more for returns by creating a lot of, policies that the buyers have to kind of jump through, rather than, eBay just, hey, you want for free? Hey, there you go. Screw the seller. You know what I mean. So I expect another flat year on eBay based on this first quarter, unless they really significantly start making those changes, that I brought up. But I just don't see them doing it. The same old abusive heads of the family will likely be doing the same abuse that they've always been doing. And we know how that works. Where's the abuse on eBay? Towards the sellers to no end. And it needs to stop. It really does. So anyway, I hope this helps you out. Thank you to all of my subscribers. Thank you to all of my viewers. If you haven't subscribed yet, it's 100% free. Because at this point, I'm doing all this for free on YouTube and Google. So anyway, if you subscribe, hopefully I can start to get monetized. And I won't always have to work for free. Anyway, hope this helps you out. Good luck with your reselling. Good luck with listing. And hopefully, maybe a miracle will happen, kind of like A Christmas Carol, and the eBay Scrooge will have a dream, where he's visited by, the ghosts of Christmas past, present, future, and eBay will wake up and go, you know what? We're going to start treating our sellers awesome. And we're going to find other ways to get revenue over milking our sellers to no end. And start to get money from the front end instead of always the back end. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. I'm out of here. Bye.